I think the roster is good enough for the reasons you guys push, but I love to sprinkle in a little bit of universal power towards some of
Uh-huh,
my
uh-huh.
picks.
But I'm the
So,
crazy one who has the insane takes. Calling upon God himself is not too crazy.
whoa, whoa, whoa! I didn't
Let
say
me,
God.
okay, whatever you believe in. Let me defend myself quickly. And actually,
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Salt Mine. We are coming at you with Season 2, Episode 1, as we get into the NACL Summer 2023. We have got ourselves some fancy new video assets, courtesy of Emma. Shout out to her. We'll link her Twitter down in the description. And we've got the full original cast back. My name is Gordo. I'm joined by Nyarko, Slayer, Bonfire, and TDS from your left to your right there. And we are going to kick things off this season with just a straight up power ranking of all our teams. So we're going to throw it back. We've got way less teams this time around. We've shrunk down from 16 to 10. But we're going to go alphabetically down each of the teams. We're going to give our takes on where we are power ranking each of them. And we'll start off with the highest or lowest, getting to duel it out a little bit and chat about each and every one of those teams. So without further ado, let's get things started, boys. Let's start off with AOE, who are going to be up at the top of the list. I suppose I'll give my ranking first. I have AOE at number 8.
I have them at number 5 for me. I got high hopes.
Definitely high hopes. Yeah. I did not number my list. Let me go back and do that. That would really help
All
me
right, pull it out.
Okay, I have AOE at 8. Thank you.
I have them at 9. So,
Jeez.
No. Everyone is quite low in AoE. I have them at 7. I think I'm the second highest.
Yeah, I think that does make
That
you
would-
second highest,
Yeah,
but
after
nowhere near as
Bonfire.
high as Bonfire. Bonfire, you're the AOE truther of this
Wow.
episode. Go ahead and talk us up on AOE here a little bit.
So I didn't think this was going to be my Golden Guardians take of this season. If you don't know, obviously last split called GG or no Dignitas. Sorry, I called
Yeah.
Dignitas
Yeah.
for number 1 spot and then finished second. So I was pretty proud of that. I suppose this is my hot take. I have them at 5. I think just looking at the roster and then what they were obviously able to do last split, I've got high hopes for them. I think that they do carry some really strong names like Concept and Breezy into this split, and I don't know. I just after seeing what they've done in the last couple of months, I've got high hopes for the organization, and I think building a good kind of infrastructure around pretty strong players can bring good things. So there's not a lot of reasoning. It's not like I believe in somebody above everybody else, but I just think that they've got a good infrastructure. They've shown me good things, and I think that they're a very good mid, kind of table. They're gonna do fine. They're not gonna impress. They're not gonna depress. They're just gonna compress.
Okay.
I guess do I combat? I'm assuming.
Yeah,
I gotta be
you're
back
the,
to
you're the
swing of
lowest
things,
on them.
guys,
Let's
so,
let's talk about. You know what? Maybe
uh,
we should actually be running down the rosters here as we go as well, in case people
Yeah,
haven't
sure.
kept track with all the Pokemon leaks. Given that most of these teams haven't even announced rosters, I guess it's worth saying, right? We're gonna base
Yeah,
these
yeah,
all on
yeah.
LCS EV's list because a good 3 or 4 of these teams have yet to announce rosters at time of recording, which is June 7th. So AoE's roster is Concept, Will, Darkwings, Lynx, and Breezy. And Slayer, how about you tell us why you think they're the second worst team in the league?
Yeah, so I mean, going off Bonfires, but I don't really know what they've shown, if they've shown anything to be successful. They certainly didn't in spring. I definitely still have high hopes on Darkwings. I thought he was one of the better mid laners. I remember back to the spring discussion we had. We talked about him as one of those dark horse mid laners among the established names that I'm sure we'll still end up getting to because they'll be down the list. But they didn't really show. They had a bit of a strong start out the gate. We felt like they might have been one of the best provisional teams, and then ended up kind of crashing and burning. I mean, they didn't even finish top 8. I'm pretty sure in spring. So you sit there and you think, all right, well, can they do some tooling onto the rosters? I don't really know how much I like some of these replacements. I really was a fan of Winnie. I definitely still think Darkwings is still the big bad there, but I don't think they've made any real improvements. And I don't really want to say that compared to some of these other teams with a lot more upside players that they could make a bigger jump here. So I'm going to slot them in at 9. I'm willing to be the negative Nancy that has to bite the bullet when it comes down to the punch, but I'm not just, I feel like AoE is going to kind of crash and burn.
I think crash and burn is like a little strong. Like I think a lot of these kind of middle of the pack teams are going to end up taking a fair bit of games from each other. I don't think we're going to end up with like a CLG Faith this split who ends up winning one game in the whole regular season. I think there's going to be a little bit more parity than that. I do think AoE probably ends up falling down the bottom too, though. I just don't see a lot of these players as substantial upgrades, right? I think Gamsu was, less than a year removed of having some time in LCS. He was, I think a pretty viable NACL top laner, up towards the upper half. I don't think Concept improves on that much. I don't consider Will to be a huge upgrade over Winnie. I'm happy to have him back. Don't get me wrong. He's young NA talent. I thought his stint on 100 Thieves Academy was pretty good. But, I don't have him, like, blowing Winnie out of the water or anything. And I was kind of low on Breezy last split as well. I mean, he's probably a slight upgrade over Skytech. But with the rest of the teams here, yeah, I end up having AoE a little bit lower.
And I technically feel that's kind of the biggest part that makes me doubt them a bit. Obviously, I'm not super low on them. Well, 7 out of 10 is kind of low on them. But I feel like when I compare it to the rest, it's where my big doubt comes from. And I think that there are some rosters that could outperform them. They are still a roster that has potential because of the players that they did bring. But I'm not sure if I would bet on them to be above some of the teams that are on the list. Like, I think 7 is a really fair place to put them.
And I do think that there's some amount of granularity between, I would say, the bottom 3 to 4 teams that makes me feel that a shift up from the 8th slot that I put them in to the 7th slot or down to the 9th slot makes a lot of sense. I do not think that they're definitively the worst team in the league, though. I also don't think that they're really leapfrogging up into true middle of the pack status, especially given some of the rosters that we're going to talk about in the future. However, given the way that I have in the past navigated the lower half of the NACL, clearly I'm not the person to go to. So keep that in mind. And honestly, at this point, I'm just kind of deferring to Bonfire, frankly. If he believes in a team we're all doubting, I think that that's the one that we have to highlight.
I mean, what did Bonfire really even do with Dignitas here, right? Listen, they may have gotten second, man. They may have gotten second, but what has that done for them? You've cursed these boys, Bonfire. Now they're all either unemployed or playing for TSM or Dignitas, a fate worse than death. Hey,
that's honestly true.
It did not work out for them, man. You owe these guys an apology, if anything.
Yeah, that's true.
I have, as Slayer has many times said, I have some pretty terrible takes. But that also means that I have some pretty incredible takes because I really do not like taking the road most traveled. So I'm gonna put my faith in AoE Gold here. I really am, and I think it also comes down to, you guys brought up a good point earlier about the lower half of the table is really a lot more kind of a slugfest. I don't think AoE Gold jumps to top 4. That's why I have them as 5th. I just think they're kind of the best of the worst. So by no means am I saying they're going to beat the top 4 who we're going to go through, and I think we're going to have pretty much a consensus top 4. But I do think they're the best of the worst. So I want to preface that.
Yeah, I do think there is I think there's a firm top 4. So I certainly hope we end up all agreeing on those. But I'm excited to fight when it comes to 5th, 6th though with Bonfire. That sounds like it's going to be fun. Let's get into that. Surely top 4 here, though, with disguised newcomers to the NACL. This roster is going to be Fake God, Tomio, Young, Meech, and Zazel. A beefed up North American-centric version of the Cloud9 Challengers roster that took the victory last split. So should not come as too big of a surprise that I have this team at 2nd.
Yeah, I will join you in their 2nd as well. I have them at 2nd.
I got them at 1st, actually. I think they're taking it all home.
Let's go, Nyarko. I also have them at 1st. I think they're the favorites.
Okay, so I'm the one that has them the lowest.
At 10th.
It's not that low, but it's 3rd.
Okay, yeah. So it's a podium finish across the board.
Yeah.
And that's very fair.
I want to hear what TDS has. You have to explain yourself with 3rd, though, because you're kind of alone in this.
Yeah, the main reasoning that I have here for 3rd is that I think the top 2 are going to be stronger than any other team, and also they have the longest time together. So I think that that's going to play so much more in favor over DSG. And I think that even though DSG has a really interesting roster and has the upside to go above third place, I feel like the difference in time playing together and things like that, it's going to affect at the end. I'm kind of already throwing myself out because I'm pretty sure you guys know which are the two longest rosters together and the ones that seem like the most exciting. So it's pretty obvious which are going to be above them. But I think DSG has a lot of potential, and I'm like really excited. Like as always, I point out to the mid laners, and having a mid laner like Young that is such a star player can really put you above a lot of the other teams. So I'm really interested in seeing how DSG ends up performing.
Yeah, I just want to hop in. I'm the structure guy. I'm the guy that likes to talk about, kind of the building blocks. And I have DSG at second because I don't think there's any question about the talent on this roster. But if you look at DSG's Valorant team, and I hate to bring it to another, another video game.
What are you doing?
But it's the same situation. It's an incredibly talented roster. They didn't win a single game. Now I don't think that's going to happen to this team, but I have question marks about this guy's toast and his ability to build a competitive and comprehensive esports roster that meshes well together. So
now hold on.
How long are we? It took what, 5 minutes to get to this blasphemy? What are we talking about?
I'm just saying.
I'm going to kill two color casters with one stone here because I think that TDS and Bonfire must be looking at a different roster because, guys, this is 3 out of the 5 members of C9 Challengers. What do you mean they don't mesh together? If we saw C9 come back with what they have here, I would just say, yeah, that's a normal amount of adjustments or changes that you would see from a split to another split. So I don't really think there's going to be any issues with meshing, and I don't really know the extent to which Toast is actually going to be influencing the team as a coach or anything like that. I think he's made it pretty clear that he's here to maybe save the NACL or Tier 2 NA Amateur rather than having specific stake in wanting to, have League of Legends itself be kind of his primary game or something like that he now represents, And therefore, given that he has Golden Glue as head coach, I don't really think that we're going to be seeing too many issues from the top end either. I think that it's debatable as to where they land in the top 3, but the reasoning for why you guys don't have them at 1 kind of confuses me a bit, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Just a quick to argue with that particular point with Nyarko of the synergy. Yes, you have 3 of the previous 5 members of C9A, but you have one of the most important synergies in League of Legends, and that's jungle support.
Yep.
Mid jungle is not there. AD support is not there, so you're kind of already without the most important synergies in the game. And I would argue mid jungle is the most important out of everyone.
Yes,
so you're already kind of lacking there. Not like it's impossible for them to find it, but I wouldn't say that that's the synergies that I'm looking for, particularly in a team if you don't have the mid jungle even down.
Yeah, I hate that I'm getting grouped in with these guys now, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I'm closer to Nyarko and Slayer, even though I literally share a ranking with Bonfire. No, listen, I disagree with the roster building complaints. I think C9 basically built this roster for you. C9 and Riot Games collaborated to build this roster. C9 by building the core, and Riot Games by causing the other two to be jobless. But I don't agree, though, that it's like an upgrade, right? I think Young and Meech are really green, really high ceiling, but low floor replacements to the consistency that the imports, Diplex and Lost, I think really brought to the table. I'm not even talking about MNS here. I think MNS is a totally different piece of this team that isn't probably even worth discussing that much. He wasn't there for most of the latter half. So it's like, I think that they're more volatile than they were before. I think especially the Meech Lost difference is what I'm looking at here. I think Lost was super consistent. Lost has been an all-star in NACL for his whole career. Was never quite able to really show it on the LCS stage, but I think when it came to NACL and Academy, he was always so dominant. Meech is, I would love to see him be good. I mean, people have been hyping this guy up for a long time. There were talks about him being the FlyQuest AD carry if they didn't end up getting Prince. And if I made a lot of excuses for him on CLG Challengers, but I think this is going to be the big prove-it split for him, right? I had a lot of questions about Breezy. I was willing to blame a lot of their struggles on Breezy. You're with Zazel now, buddy, so you're either a top 2 bot lane or I'm off the hype train. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Meech this split.
Yeah, so I guess I'll take this moment to get in my couple cents here since we're going around the round robin here. First of all, I don't have much of a problem with TDS's complaints
Oh, there we go.
for this
What a
team.
surprise.
Because he's definitely, I definitely agree with the logic that the two teams he has above them are a lot more experienced with each other, have a lot more prep time. That's all fine. Bonfires is just complete. I don't understand the logic at all. That sounds like a TSM fan thing to say, and I'm the former TSM fan sitting here saying, "Oh God, my org owner is going to take over my League of Legends roster." The difference here being that Toast didn't play for this team, take them to international tournaments, and then play at a high level. This is a guy who plays League casually and is most famous on YouTube for his Among Us 1v4 clutches. All right, this is a completely different scenario. I don't think Toast has any hands-on this team. And the thing for me is the only thing I want to add to why I have them number one. We can talk about the roster all day, how we feel about it, but I am definitely a guy that's a lot more. I don't want to call it momentum in this situation, but like outside, outside universal powers. I guess I sound like the weirdo, but the fact that all of NA is around Disguised Toast, this roster wanting them to succeed, I think is just it's just too good of a feel good story for them not to end up at least top 3, which I think 3 would be the floor. And number 1, it just is really great to see they come in, they take this spot, they go to the top, and Disguised Toast gets to save NA. So in a way, I'm kind of willing this. I want to try and will this into the perfect scenario, the Cinderella story. I obviously have no power over it, but I think the roster is good enough for the reasons you guys push. But I love to sprinkle in a little bit of universal power towards some of my picks.
But I'm the crazy one who has the insane takes. Calling upon God himself is not too crazy.
Whoa! I didn't say God.
Okay, whatever you believe in. Let me defend myself quickly. And actually, I'm gonna even take it up a step. I'm moving them back to 3. I changed my rankings. I talked myself out of 2.
You talked yourself down on them.
I talked myself down. I talked myself down. It's not about Disguised Toast hopping in the call and saying, "Hey guys, let's take Anivia mid." It's more about the infrastructure. When you're a pro player, you need to have a structure. You need to have wake up times, VOD reviews, analyst sessions, and I don't think Disguised Toast's team brings that. I don't think he's not a company, and so I think I'm glad he's doing this. I'm glad he's investing in teams, and I think it's fantastic that he's bringing this talent together, and it's exciting. I agree with that, but I think again, if we're referencing his previous work game, his Valorant team crashed and burned, and that had Ye on it. Who it's basically like having Faker on a team and finishing dead last. So
this guy's
that's my argument.
You're speculating on if they practice, if they wake up, if they prep without even knowing any of the ins and outs of this team or this organization.
Yeah, they don't have a facility. They don't work together in person. I just don't agree. So
that's very weird. That's very weird.
Technically didn't GG also have 1 and then 10th place for 2 splits in a row?
Well, yeah, for sure. And then I actually think basically none of these orgs have facilities now. It's all remote. It's being played on the Chicago server. So we'll see. I do think that the difference between they're bringing in Golden Glue as coach now. They had Revan / Flanalista. Flanalista? I don't know how they pronounce it over in CB Law, but that guy. New TSM coach. God help his soul. Yeah. He was pretty good. I think he probably contributed to their success a fair bit. We'll see how Golden Glue is able to do. He's got an NACL, a couple of NACL deep runs with 100 Thieves Academy under his belt as well. We'll see how he's able to do. I think that's enough on Disguised, I think, unless anybody wants to shoehorn in one more point here. I think we can move on to Evil Genius's challengers. Now, this is a roster everybody should be plenty familiar with on this show, especially. It is Soul, Shaden, Ryoma, King, and Smoothie. I will lead things off as soon as I pull up my rankings here. I have a vague idea of where they are, but I'll need to check the exact number. I have them at number 6.
Okay.
6.
That is... I can't tell if that's optimistic, and now I feel scared going second because I can no longer ride alongside someone else
Seize the
by
bull by
putting
the
them all the way at 9. So I guess at the very least, I'm there with Colomer about this. So that's something. Unfortunately, he's not on the call to help me defend this position, but yeah, I'm putting them all the way down at 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just quickly. I'm with Gordo. I'm with 6 with Gordo.
Jeez. TDS rock paper scissors. Do you want to go first or should I?
I can go first. I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
go
typically
for
the
it.
last one, so I'm
Yeah,
also
go
on
for it.
6 actually.
Oh,
Woo!
jeez. Okay.
Oh wait, we need one more 6, or this gets a little weird.
I have it at 4. I have him at 4th.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Of course.
Oh,
All right.
All right.
That's a
All
good
right.
one.
Leave the red
Wait,
carpet,
wait,
ladies and
you're
gentlemen.
what happened to our
Before we go in-
consensus top 4, Bonfire?
I know. I know.
Yeah,
I thought we
Before
were
we
all
go
gonna
in
be
with
in
Bonfire,
agreement.
can I confirm something? Do we know if King is actually going to play this year or
I
this split?
don't.
Is he
I
actually going to play?
I
not an
don't. I'm
insider.
assuming that he
I'm kind
will,
of
but I don't know.
thinking
Well,
he is.
you were just
Okay.
talking about this guy's Toast's entire operational workings.
know.
You sure you don't know if King is going to play or not? In this
I
insider?
know. I'm actually the insider. I actually am LCS EV. I just wanted to come out on stream and say that. No, I guess I have to defend. Actually, Nyarko, do you want to defend first your terrible position, then I'll defend my amazing position, and we'll kind of
How is
even it
this-
out with them. No, I
Whatever,
mean like
guys.
you think they're terrible. Like you think.
I will direct everybody to the spring playoffs bracket, and I want you guys to tell me what you see there, because I'm seeing them getting wrecked by Fear, and they're getting wrecked by AoE. And given that I have AoE at 8th, and we thought that was a relatively acceptable position, we got to put EG under them. And this is a vaguely joking position, as you know, rosters do change, but
Not
EG
EG's.
not changed.
Nope.
AoE's did, and frankly, I don't think you could really even say that AoE's has changed for the worse. Therefore, if I'm flooring them at 8th, EG has to go under them, because I don't really see a means by which this team is going to develop or improve with the players that they currently have. And this is less of a knock to the players and more of a knock to the organization. If we're going to talk about a team who's in a really weird position from like the top-down perspective, it's probably going to be EG Challengers. I'm shocked that EG did not drop their Challengers roster to begin with, and I guess I have to be thankful to them for that. But the fact of the matter is, there's such a kind of morass swirling around this org that used to have this real brand of being champions of, you know, the little guys in a way. And it feels like, if we want to talk about like the overarching arc of the team, this is one of straight up stagnation for me, and therefore I think that they deserve to have a pretty low spot on the roster.
I'd really quickly just like
yeah, you go
to,
first. You go first. You go. First.
I just want to quickly apologize to all the EG fans still left out there. I'm sorry that you have to understand what being a TSM fan was like. That's all I really have to say in this thing, because that's the pain. This is the pain that they're stuck for, and I know Gordo likes to talk about how they speed ran this for their fan base, but it is a very rough time. My logic, I guess, is I just don't think that EG are gonna let their roster finish 9th in NACL. Like I know we're in the era of like, hey, like money's not really a thing anymore for anybody in this space, but I guess I'm clinging to the idea that if they were slipping that bad again, they would try and catch themselves, and I'll bite the bullet later if that's the truth, but that's
so Slayer,
why
your theory is this current roster is in fact a 9th place roster. EG's just going to blow it up if they're struggling that bad.
I think this roster has the potential to be a 9th place roster, and I think I guess I am clinging to the idea that that they'll save it. Listen, it's not great logic, but what logic can you really make with EG right now, right?
I mean, fair. I had a pretty bad take as well. I'll be 100% honest here. Someone else help me out.
Can you guys hear me, by the way?
We can.
Yeah.
We got
Oh,
you.
thank
We got
goodness.
Discord noises too, so I'm gonna go on streamer mode really quick and turn those off. Sorry, everybody. But I think we've fixed it. I think we've got it all solved.
Growing pains.
Yeah. Also, terrible Wi-Fi pains.
Listen, dude. It's our first episode with video assets. I think this has gone pretty well, all things considered. But
True,
yeah,
true.
Nyarko, come. Not Nyarko. Bonfire, come tell us how Evil Genius and Challengers are a top 4 NACL team.
Yeah, one place below Disguise.
I was close to putting them above Disguise, but I remembered that
Oh,
they
I
were
wish you did, man.
terrible last split. I remember they were terrible
I
last
wish
split.
You did.
I remember they were terrible
Yeah,
last split, so I
that's
came to
hilarious.
my senses. I recognize this is a hot take, but I am somebody who believes in keeping a team together and believes in believing in the process. And with Evil Geniuses, I would like to direct you towards last split and our last predictions, where everyone said, Evil Geniuses is a top 6 team. Evil Geniuses has a great system. Evil Geniuses, yada, yada, yada. Everyone believed in Evil Geniuses, and then they had one bad split, and suddenly they're going to get relegated from the NACL. I think that this is still the players that we all know are good at League of Legends, and, you know, a couple bad months of play should not define their future in the league. And so I think that I'm going to go back to how I felt about them last split, and I'm going to say that I think that they've got an even bigger burden to shoulder. Obviously with the NACL going kind of tits up, but at the end of the day, they are still good players, and they've had a entire split where it's been worst case scenario to kind of recognize their weaknesses, and I hope that their strengths will shine now. So that is my argument.
It's an interesting one. I
Bonfire.
think. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, Nyarko.
Oh, I just want to throw something snippy and tedious. If you have a substantive point, go ahead. I was just going to say, us in the business, we call that last split cold hard evidence as to how they're going to perform, right? Like, I don't want to, color cast for you here, but I feel that that's what we have to look at in terms of the narrative of EG, unfortunately. I would love to see the comeback story and the redemption arc, because at the end of the day, I support the players over any organization, and I think that they're still grinding, trying to be the best, but it's just a tougher environment. And I know that bad environment takes put us at with Fear at
Cincinnati
16
Fear
last time around, but Fear didn't have any expectations prior to that round, and now we're here in the summer, a full season later, and I just really don't have faith in this roster doing much in its current state.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I was on the verge between, I think this team can be good, but also this team has shown that they cannot be good. So it's on the verge between the two of them that I was trying to decide. I tried to play with the nuances, the fact that they barely played with their actual roster until it was
played
important.
no games with their actual roster, actually. King played no games.
Yeah, until important points, they played absolutely no games with their important roster. They recovered Ryoma and they looked good, but they realistically never played with King. That's why I also put the nuance that if they have their actual roster, maybe they can impress. And I'm also thinking about the fact that they essentially have this split to showcase themselves. Because not only do they have a bad split previously, the future for NACL is essentially up in the air, so nobody knows. And they are an EG. So they are essentially in jail with barely any food, about to be executed because NACL probably doesn't exist. This is their last chance at somebody looking at them and saying, okay, we want you. And this is the opportunity for them to perform. If they don't perform, guess it's getting executed. And I'm not trying to make it sound as bad as possible, but yeah, it's kind of like that. At least to me. That's why I put them at 6, where they could be really good, surprise, or be really shit and disappoint me once again.
Yeah, I know I'm gearing up here to get disappointed once again, but I do kind of side with Bonfire's logic here quite a bit. I'm kind of willing to give him a pass on Spring. I did bring up, I said this on the show last season, right, that I think there's something to be said for like the mindset you get into where, you start the season and you're running 2 subs and you're like, this isn't our real team. And then you play half the split and you're still running 2 subs and now you're like losing and you're way worse than all the teams better than you. And you get Ryoma and things don't really get that much better, and you get a new coach and things still don't really get that much better, and you're still waiting for King. He's never shown up. We've had mobility for months now. Like, I can see how that spirals out of control, and I want to contextualize that with, like, I still think Shaden's great. Like, I think Shaden's on the path to LCS. Trademark. I think Ryoma and King have been at the top of this level before for quite a bit of their careers. I just have faith in the players, and I'm not totally willing to write them off after one split. And they have their new coach now as well. They are sticking with that's change in coaching staff. And hopefully they've King the whole time. So I hope all those factors come together, and I think that they'll do better. I am tempering my expectations, though, with this 6th place prediction. Like, I had them first last season. They're dropping down to 6th this season, even with some of the competition narrowing out around them.
Well, at least this time, because of having so many free agents, they can technically replace anyone that will not come. So if King doesn't come, they can replace him with someone
Get
out
lost,
there.
yeah.
Same for Ryoma.
Yep.
Well, technically, has anyone seen King recently? I haven't heard or seen anything from him. Do we know if King is real? Yeah, do we know if he's actually real? Has anyone seen Ryoma and King on the same room?
King is it's a money laundering scheme.
It's just such a weird situation, but I want to have hopes for EG. so I'm not going to be the most pessimistic one on them either. So we have 3-6, so I think it's close enough to trying to make them be in a good positive outlook. Only Nyarko is doomsday here, so I think it's not that bad.
All right. If we're really close to keeping this on 10 minutes a team, so I say let's move on. Let's get on to
Nice.
Cincinnati Fear, baby. I have got this team at number 4.
It's a good place to have them. I have them at 4 as well.
I have them at 6.
Okay.
I also have them at 4. Another preseason primer, and I look
Let's
like
go,
I'm just Taylor
boys.
Gordo. This is great.
Okay, it looks like there's a consistent point here, and I'm siding with someone. Maybe not the majority. Well, it is the majority. I'm 4th as well. I think Fear should be 4th.
You set me up, TDS. You set me up right there.
Well, we agreed earlier that we all had a consensus top 4.
yeah,
You're the
that
one
is
that
true.
went.
That is
You're
true,
the
I
one that went
guess.
off the rails.
If I have been able to count.
All right, you're the main character, Bonfire. Go ahead.
Dude, another thing. By the way, if I get a lot of these right, I deserve my respect for season 3. Yeah, I have them at 6 simply because I can't put them higher. Just with like a lot of my other like kind of bold predictions. I think there's a good chance they get 5th or 4th. But I just believe in AOE Gold and EG a little bit more. Because of the reasons I brought in earlier.
Dude, it sounds so much worse when you put it like that.
No. I'm saying it's not a fault to Cincinnati Fear. Like I'm not saying that they have gotten worse in any way. I just think other teams have better reasons to be higher, I suppose. I also think that Cincinnati Fear were riding. I don't remember who said it earlier, but it was like Cincinnati Fear. They had nothing to lose, right? They had everything to prove. They came in guns a-blazing, yada yada yada, and they did great. They don't have that anymore. Now they have expectations. People know how they play. They scout for Cincinnati Fear. They don't just say this should be our free win. And I think that that's going to hurt them. I think there's a lot of teams. Another weird reference. DRX, for example. Obviously they did lose a lot of their roster, so maybe it's not the best comparison.
They lost
Yeah.
all their roster.
Maybe it's not a good
No, they still have.
comparison.
They still have.
They only kept
Yeah, I
Barrel.
guess that's the fuzz. Yeah, all right, never mind. I dropped that. The whole point I'm trying to make is like when a team does well, when people don't expect anything of them, they tend to have a bit of a fall off, just because teams start to scout for them and start to prepare and all that good stuff. I think that's going to happen with Cincinnati Fair. So that's my argument.
I just want to say quickly, Bonfire was one of the people that also put them 16th last split.
I did. I just hate Cincinnati
Just-
as a
just
city,
in
apparently.
The city. That's fair. That's the smartest thing you've said.
That's the smartest thing you've said. Oh, Peter.
All right. In which Cincinnati burns, I will once again try to rebut Bonfire, and to a degree, well, actually not TDS. TDS is siding with us for once, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Bonfire. As much as I respect you as an analyst and as a person,
Oh boy.
Jesus.
I feel that you are cherry picking narratives to a degree from last split. And while I too am very much cherry picking, you can yell at me on your own time. You know what I mean? So I'm going to use this time to try to like get my head above water a little bit in regards to my takes. What I think the issue here is that yes, there are teams that can be scouted against. There's teams that are going to fall off a little bit. But if we want to look at one of these rosters with nothing to lose that eventually was found out, we could look at like Wild Card from the spring split or something like that, who I think struggled a little bit later on once their dynamics were figured out. Fear, on the other hand, plays a pretty clean and standard game of League of Legends, and I don't think that the meta that we're seeing right now is going to change that fact whatsoever. I think that just frankly, Fear is a great team with great players on them, and therefore I really can't find a way to put them below 4th. I think this is definitively the gatekeeper of the top cut for me here in the NACL.
Yeah. I do have them in the same place. I do realize I'm griefing this, by the way. I did not say the players for Cincinnati Fear. It is Philip, Perry, Shochi, Minwi, and JJ. I'll put something up on the screen when we get to each team or something to offset the fact that I'm not doing this. But to give my Fear take here, I do actually really like the way that they ran their team last split, and I feel like they've kept that intact. I think this is like a real mid-jungle team with Perry Shochi, like your real bread and butter mid-jungle focused team. I do think the loss of Faisal hurts them. I think the Faisal for Philip trade favors FlyQuest challengers. I think probably every party thinks that. I don't think that's I don't think anybody believes that that Cincinnati Fear came out ahead there. But I do think the JJ over Trevor replacement is a closer upgrade as well. And I do think they've still got the pieces that got them a lot of their success previously. The loss of Faisal hurts. That's probably why I think they're a further down fourth. Like, I don't think I have them slightly below the other three, where I think they could all really contend. I still think Fear is in that category, but they're lower than the other three. Like, just like half a tier down.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Faisal being moved to another team, I think, is kind of sad, and it's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit less interested in Fear than I was post the first few weeks where our expectations were shattered, and then I kind of got back on board with them in the spring split. But at the same time, for as good as Faisal is, this is surprisingly enough not one of those teams that kind of had to just play around top game after game after game, which was a dynamic that we saw out of a lot of these middle to lower pack teams in the NACL. I think that probably the biggest example was TL first last time around. Here, I think that the shift in the top side of the map doesn't matter quite as much. We're also in a meta, I think, where we aren't going to really be seeing such an overemphasization of top lane, as was kind of justifiable with some of the picks that were rising throughout the spring split. But now, given the fact that we have a pretty stable bot lane once again, and we have the same jungle mid duo, I'm happy to say that they're once again going to not necessarily defy expectations this time, but at least keep the train rolling.
I think the point to sort of rebuttal, I think you made a great point there, because Nyarko, what you said about, because we could say, like, you could, I do usually entertain the argument of, the teams weren't prepping for a squad like this, they wrote them off. But I usually like that argument in like a week to week kind of basis thing when you look back at matches. And when we talk about Cincinnati Fear in the spring, you said it best, Nyarko. They shattered expectations like a couple weeks in. So a couple weeks in, fans already went, okay, this squad is not who we thought they were. So teams are doing some sort of extra scouting, bumping them up on their charts, probably their scrim charts as well. So I definitely think Cincinnati Fear is legit. That's partly why I have them fourth. I do agree also on the take that losing Faisal, obviously from a pure top laner, like a skill position, it's a downgrade to get Philip. But the one silver lining I do want to point out, and I kind of like this, is you do inject some veteran sort of presence into the Cincinnati Fear lineup with Philip. I mean, he has, in fact, played on every stage you can throw at him in North America. So, yeah, maybe skill-wise, he's definitely a downgrade from Faisal. I definitely think he's overall a better top laner. But I do like the idea of bringing in a veteran top laner to help stabilize this team in case they go through struggles in this NACL. They're able to ride out that ship and land themselves in a fourth position. So I obviously agree with a lot of the takes everyone's already said, but I just kind of want to throw that, veteran presence addition. Well, unfortunately not yet. I'm sure there will be some team we agree on at some point.
There will. I also, on that veterancy subject, by the way, I think the big veteran, Philip's still pretty young. I think the big veteran coming into this team is JJ, actually.
True.
Yeah, like JJ, you could say the same thing. He was in LCS for a little bit under FlyQuest back in the day, and he's an Academy veteran as well. Took some time off in spring, but happy to have him back. And I think, like I said, I think he's an upgrade over Trevor. And I think crucially here, I do think that like Philip and JJ fill the same roles that Faisal and Trevor did. I think they're going to be very similar role players in the team, and I think the real driving force, like I said, was Perry and Shoshi. So that's why I end up more confident on them than their doppelganger that we'll get into in a little bit.
And I'm glad to follow up on that, because that's kind of the main thing that I'm looking at for Fear. They, to me at least, they essentially didn't downgrade. They kind of side graded in the top lane, because I do think that Faisal has more upside later on, but I think that right now Philip and Faisal are pretty similar in terms of how they can apport to the team. So I'm not going to say that it's a downgrade or an upgrade on either side. It's pretty much a side grade. Later on, we'll see Faisal evolve even more. But I think the bot lane one is the biggest clear one, and I think that because the strengths are not taken away from what Fear did, they're going to still be a pretty consistent team. That's also the reason why I have them fourth, though, because I don't think that they did anything that could put them above the rest of the teams. And fourth is essentially the place that they ended up last split. So it's pretty much just going to be a pretty similar situation for Fear, and they are going to end in the same place as last split, or at least that's how I see it.
Yeah. Also, just to finish off on this team, one thing I think is funny actually is like the instinct to say that like that Faisal is like the shiny new upcomer and Philip is like the established veteran, just because of how their careers have gone, right? I think that's almost an accurate portrayal, just because Philip's got all this experience. He played a split of LCS, and Faisal, this is his first time on an actual LCS affiliate org, other than like Evil Genius Prodigies, which was still an amateur team. But I'm pretty sure Faisal's older. Like I don't know exactly how old Faisal is. I just checked the wiki. He doesn't have his age on there. But just knowing how young Philip is and how long Faisal's been around, I think Faisal's probably older.
Well, that's what happens when careers are essentially 5 years. Like 1 year, after 1 year you're already a veteran, essentially.
This is like that thing where, remember when LCS did Boomers versus Zoomers to open up the season, and Revenge was on Zoomers when he's older than Contracts, who was on Boomers?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to editorialize on the first episode back, guys?
Sure.
Of course.
I just want to say, the fact that everybody's getting juked by career span rather than actual age demonstrates that age is a myth in this game. You can play until you're 30. I don't think it actually matters, guys. Pick veterans if you want. I don't know, man. Nobody gets washed. Nobody gets washed.
Except for me.
Figure's gonna be schooling kids till he's 45. So
Exactly.
True. All right. I think that's enough on ye old Cincinnati Fear. Let's move over to the team that they just made a big trade with, FlyQuest. I have this team at number 3.
I keep following.
Oh, and
I have him third too.
Let's go, Slayer. And before I let it slip away from me, the roster is Faisal, UG, Spyrax, Masu, Winsome. They've only changed out Philip for Faisal.
That was what the awkward pause was for, by the way.
Thank you, Nyarko. I appreciate you leaving me the space to still fuck it up.
I have Fly at second, though, while it's on me.
Actually, TDS, you go first. You always go last. I want to be nice to you.
Yeah, I have them. This is one of the two teams I was talking about. Second as well.
I have them, as I sip my soup, at second.
Okay.
All right. So am I the lowest? Or me and Slayer are the lowest, right? Yeah. Let's go. You start us off, Slayer.
So this is definitely, I want to preface this by saying I could see their ceiling as one. Definitely. This team is obviously already full of a lot of proven players. I really am a big fan of Winsome. I couldn't believe that he actually played to a point where he was rivaling for that starting support FlyQuest on their LCS team, but they also kind of proven he got to prove that he kind of deserved it at points. It's more of a testament to how I feel about the teams above FlyQuest than I do where the team as a whole. I'm definitely riding high. I guess I'm riding a little too high on the NA, save the NA scene thing with Toast. We've already been through that. That's kind of why I wanted to throw them up at 1. And the other team in front of them, I just believe in a lot more of the potency or the upside of some of these other players on that squad. But you know what you're getting with FlyQuest. That's obviously why they're 3. That's why, you just heard everybody on this panel sort of put them in the similar spot, and we agree. This is the most we've agreed on a team, I believe, because we're only the variance is between second and third place. So you could definitely tell why. I definitely really like Winsome. We already talked about Faisal a lot too. I thought we were going to talk about him when we got here to FlyQuest. We kind of covered really how we all feel about him when we were talking about Cincinnati Fears. So we don't have to go over that. For me, I just really want to see if because I think FlyQuest has the potential to be the best bottom lane in the NACL with Winsome and Masu. So if they can play up to that bar, they could be 1. That's really the withhold for me, and I guess I'll leave some of the other player breakdowns to some of the rest of you guys, because this is a 5-man panel.
I do want to jump in and kind of defend myself from myself.
Whoa.
In the past on this single episode, I have referenced the previous bracket from the spring playoffs a few times. And while theoretically you could say, hey, Fear did in fact eliminate FlyQuest in the losers bracket, I have a few things that I'm going to use to now draw back upon past conversations and spin them to my own favor. And you can call me a hypocrite for it if you want. Like I said, you guys got your own time to talk about it. And if you want to come for me, for me. For me, I think that now this is a team that gets some time to settle, some time to adjust, because they really didn't get to play with much of their completed roster last split. But now with Masu getting more time down bot side of the map, I think that we're in a position where they are going to mesh with the pre-existing members of Fly challengers that also I think had to get their feel with like a revolving door roster throughout much of the spring split. And you know how much of a UG stan I am at this point. Therefore, I think that given the fact it was also a 3-2 win for Fear in the playoff bracket, I don't think that that is an indicator of necessarily the trajectory of what these teams are going to be like in that head-to-head, or even in terms of relative power rankings to one another going into this next split. I think that Fly's ceiling is incredibly high. And while I could envision a world where Fear is kind of tapping out at like the second spot, I think that Fly has a higher ability to fly towards the very, very top of the standings like Slayer is talking about. And therefore, because of that potential, I'm putting them all the way at second, mostly because of doubts about the team that I have at third that we're eventually going to get to. And I think that that is also going to be a big discussion insider if my, not sabermetrics, but bracketology is working out well for me tracking where you guys are placing people.
Hold on. Incredibly high ceiling. Roster changes last split, but you don't want to rely too much on the previous split, as this sounds like a team that this is Evil Geniuses, which you had at 9.
No, it isn't. No,
Hold
it
on a
isn't, because
second.
Evil Geniuses has no ceiling whatsoever. You literally have to limbo to get into their house, okay?
Aiden, King, these are great players. We just talked about how good these players are. I mean, this isn't Evil
Wow.
Geniuses time. I'm just,
You're gonna lean on Kings showing up.
I'm just saying. I'm saying we agreed that they had a high ceiling. They just had Ross, which is the argument that he was just making. So just saying. But
I just said I'm twisting the narrative to fit myself.
I know.
Yeah, like definitely it could be the case that if I want to take this kind of trajectory in stride, maybe it shuffles the rest of the bracket around a little bit. I'm looking at the Evil Geniuses spot. I'm looking back at AoE. I'm looking at some of these other teams that I have ranked slightly above them. Maybe I could bump them up one or two, but we're past the point we're talking about Evil Geniuses. Therefore, I'm going to defend myself and withdraw myself from that conversation, Bonfire.
I got to talk about FlyQuest. You're right.
It's also, I do want to quickly reject where the organizations are at in like right now. Evil Geniuses versus FlyQuest is it's
also
make
like
a league reference here.
The teams have 5 different players on them too. That's, I think, a big difference.
I was just pointing out some general themes, but you're right. You can argue it. I agree. I was gonna say for FlyQuest, I had them at 2. We gotta talk about FlyQuest. I had them at 2. It's a quick point. It's pretty much the same Nyarko point, which is great ceiling, good team. I mean, honestly, Slayer said the same thing. Like, this is just, I think, probably one of the most consistent takes you're going to get. That's why we have them so close, because it's a good team. And I like the FLYC pickup, so I think they'd get bumped a little higher than DSG in my eyes. But good team. No arguments there.
I feel like this is going to become the 100 Thieves of spring. Just as a side feeling. Not because I don't believe in them. I put them in second for a reason, but the same happened with 100 Thieves. And we saw how not necessarily it exploded, but how difficult it was for them to find their stride. I still think that FlyQuest, like Nyarko was saying, has one of the highest ceilings. Not necessarily thinking that they can take first place, because the number 1 team for me is going to be the one that is going to take it all. But FlyQuest certainly has a lot in their favor to try and play around. I think mechanically they probably have one of the most stacked, if not the most stacked roster, just mechanically talking. I think Masu was one of the being absolutely like the biggest or one of the strongest stars to come through, and he took a bit of time before he finally came through, but then he was able to perform. And I think that now, after that kind of adaptation split, he's going to perform really, really well. Like, we didn't even take into account the fact that that was the first split for a good amount of players on the FlyQuest roster, and they still were able to perform really well. So now that they are going to come into a second split, I probably see them performing to a much better degree. And I also find it funny, by the way, that we were hoping to see Masu on the with the rest of the FlyQuest squad being able to play on live, and then it's going to be back to online again after he was suffering from that all split long.
Yeah, but he's gonna play online now, like, I assume on like human ping, like where he can really play the game.
Hopefully.
As opposed to the triple digits he was going for there for a little while. Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what everybody else has said. I will say that what separates FlyQuest to me from the other top 3 teams And even like what made me consider almost putting them underneath Fear is Spyrax. I think Spyrax is not at the level of the mid laners on the other contenders. He's coming into his 4th split now, and while I think he's developed good synergy with Yuji, he hasn't really individually blown me away since he was an amateur on Maryville, frankly. And so I would want to see a big step up from him before I would be predicting this to be the best team in a vacuum. Like I said, though, I still think they have room to contend for sure. And they're going to universally be considered one of the top teams, no doubt.
The last thing I want to just throw in here, because I'm sure we're close to our time, is I will happily be wrong if they get first, because the true savior of North America is and will always be Papa Smithy. So if a Papa Smithy backed team can succeed, it makes me happy.
Fair enough. Let's move on. Let's get into Maryville University, our first collegiate NACL team. They are coming in with the same roster that they just lost CLOL finals with. That is going to be Niles, Odd Orange, Get Back, Scary Jerry, and Zyko. Now, I have this team at number 7.
I too have them at number 7, but you know me, I love to root for the underdog, and this is the team I'm putting my cart behind, as it were. I'm kind of sad we didn't get to rep our teams at the very beginning of the episode because I wanted to shout these guys out. Perhaps it's defending me from the fact that people are going to come at me for still believing in them, saying it was going to be Maryville 3-0 and CLOL finals, and we didn't get that. So hiding it deeper into the episode may be healthy.
It's defending everyone else from a 3-hour episode. I'll tell you that much.
Thank goodness. I have them at 8.
Oof. I have them sitting at 5.
Oh,
I'm
TDS. Oh, TDS.
I knew it.
Yeah, E10?
Holy.
Wait. Oh, TD. All right, well. You're
Brawl it out, boys.
You're rolling it out, TDS. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You put double digits on this team.
I didn't want to. I was one of the teams that one of the persons that was rooting so hard for the teams that were coming through the qualifiers. But the issue that I have with this team is one that it's faced by, well, I don't know how it's going to work in the future, but at least as of now, by any university team, and it's that they are forced to play with the same 5 players. And I don't think this roster has the upside that all the other rosters have. Because even though they are not necessarily bad, I don't think that they are going to be able to play against the rest of the rosters, especially with the changes that some of the rosters made. That's my main fear. Like there's typically you want to see at least one change as an upswing, but there's no change at all. It's just the same 5 players. And as it was shown in the CLOL Grand Finals, and also to a certain degree in the qualifiers, they have clear weaknesses that can be exploited, and I don't think their players are the most mechanical players either. So now they are going to go against players that can go above them or be equal to a certain degree. In the NACL, I think that they are going to be taking quite a big hit. So I'm kind of sad for that, but I don't see a lot of upside for Maryville.
So I guess I will defend my spot now, because I will quickly label this as my hottest take. I mean, I think this is harder than saying DSG won, especially considering where all you guys placed DSG across the board.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just leaning on the idea that this is the collegiate LoL scene's time to shine. I think this is, the main goal for Maryville. Especially, obviously they want to win CLOL, right, in the right arena. But I think this is really what was on the minds of a lot of these players. And I also want to point out, I had them 7th until they lost the finals. So I'm running with the narrative that this is also a bit of a revenge tour to put themselves back on the map. I do want to preface by saying TDS, as you're a very wise man, especially when it comes to League. All your points are very, very valid. There are very clear weaknesses on this team. I just think that compared to some of these other amateur rosters and the fact that EG is crumbling as an organization, the backing behind these guys as a 5, as a synergy, we've already talked about how we like teams that have that synergy. to bump up other squads. I think all that mixing together will put them at 5. Are they the most mechanical? Are they the best mechanical roster? No. Are they arguably mechanically worse than maybe who I have at 6, like EG Challengers, if we're just playing mechanics? Very obviously they're worse. But do they have the backing of an entire university, the funding of that university, the fact that they've played together for so long, and the fact that they couldn't bring home the trophy in LA? They do have a lot of that going for them, and I think that's what could very well propel them, on top of the idea that I don't think a lot of people have great expectations for them. So in essence, I'm kind of labeling these guys the Cincinnati Fear of the summer split.
Just as a quick thing as well, by the way, just to preface something with this, I've never been a believer of the collegiate like system in League of Legends. So just to add on top of that. That also
Oh
goes
boy,
into
here
it.
we go.
Just to be clear,
Well,
I'm also a
yeah, I'm not
collegiate
going to go
hater.
No, I'm not going to go deeper. It's just I've never been a part of that system, so I'm not like that. I'm not a huge believer of that system. Extra point, I'm not from America, so I don't like necessarily go into the ideas of there. That's why I'm also not hugely pushing for it, but I can see the other side that you're bringing, Slayer.
I also sorry, Bob. I really quickly, I have seen a lot, like how the upturn, and Bonfire can talk to this too, the upswing around collegiate backing for esports. I mean, at least like the university we attend, like quite literally, we just attended. Still,
Yeah, I was
seems
gonna
weird
say
to say that out
graduated.
loud. We did graduate, by the way, didn't drop out. Just
Congrats,
for anybody
guys.
wondering.
Yeah, dropped out.
Make TSM your full-time job.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the university we just graduated from is pushing a major in esports. So like just from our local index, like I know money's not great in League of Legends right now or a lot of esports. But the one place it does seem to be getting better is some of these universities in America are starting to buy more and more into the idea of backing these teams. So that's partly why I like Maryville more, is because my perception of it is a lot different than one of TDS's.
I'll go quickly just because I don't think this is my fight. This is not my hill to die on. This is between TDS and Slayer, and my points are just a lot more like nuanced and in between. So it's just like they're not as interesting as like going all in or all out on someone. So I'll just say I believe in a lot of what TDS has to say. Mechanically, these guys aren't great. They just lost to a team that's not even in this league in pretty bad fashion. So how is that supposed to make you feel about them? But also they don't have a lot of the controversy that surrounds them as other teams, and I think a lot of them mesh well together and could probably like play together in their sleep. So that's got to count for something. So that's why I have them at 8. I don't think they're a good team, but I don't think they're the worst team. Again, not really interesting to talk too much in depth about.
Yeah, pretty much echoing those points. I think they're really well coached and well organized, and that's why I bring them up to number 7 over some of the teams that I think are going to be a little bit more haphazard and have potential to fall apart. Like I don't think they have like a full-on collapse scenario that I think plenty of other teams do bring a risk of to the table. And yeah, they do. Plenty of teams do, actually. I think a sizable amount of these teams do bring like a total collapse risk to the table. I don't think there's any risk of that with Maryville, but I do think they're lacking a bit in firepower, and that's going to be the issue. I think, especially like historically, right? You look at Maryville, when Maryville has the firepower, they've always gotten picked up by challenger teams, right? There's 3 generations of Maryville mid in this league, Spyrax and APA. Still playing in here too, and it's like Get Back is the one who hasn't gotten picked up, right? And while he's been very talented and a big focal point of this team, I think he's the real example. Whereas like Get Back is like a world beater in collegiate. I think he's like 7th, 8th best mid in this league, and I think that's where the struggle comes in.
So as someone who has probably watched more Maryville than anyone else here, just by virtue of covering them throughout the entirety of the CLL season and their NACL run and some of the CLL top 32 bracket, what I will say is that my believer take is putting them at 7. And this is someone who loves the team and genuinely has faith in them. Slayer, I love your optimism. I'm honestly so glad that I have someone else who's really on board with the collegiate side of League of Legends esports in general, being back on broadcast for the Salt Mine. But for me, Maryville does occasionally have their ceiling exposed in hard-pressed series like what we saw for CLL Finals. And I think that there are some weaknesses that come through during laning phase that will keep them from really kind of steamrolling people, which honestly is where they have the most experience. The problem with the current dynamic of Collegiate League of Legends is that so much of their quote unquote practice in tournaments outside of the realm of Riot sanction events for the NACL or CLOL, and even like for the vast majority of the CLOL regular season, they were absolutely rolling people, and that's how they know how to play. All the losses that they had prior to top 32 in the CLL bracket came in the form of them just goofing off, playing wild stuff. They played a Lilia support game at my request in the middle of CLL, so make that what you will, right? I'm afraid that now that you have a very consistent stream of very difficult matches that they're going to have to face off against, they will struggle to break like a 50% win rate. But there are still teams that I genuinely think that if they get ahead on, they will be able to completely roll. And that's why I have them sitting above even AoE, who I think is going to be one of the ones that they actually go neck and neck with and go deep on a lot of series with. But I could see Supernova EG to a degree absolutely collapsing due to the strength that Maryville does have, which is when get back manages to pop off and when they're able to get really scrappy late games, there is actually some amount of comeback potential against some of the higher ranked teams as well there. So with all those dynamics in mind, I'm going to put all my weight behind them, but I really cannot shove them above 7th, unfortunately.
Couldn't let Bonfire have all the crazy hot takes. I had to save him, all right? I had to join the burn.
Yeah, I know. I love it, man. I love it.
All right, let's move on there. Our next up team is Supernova. As a little disclaimer, I guess I am technically employed by part of Supernova now. I do collegiate ops for the Veracity Supernova thing, merger. So, I don't know. I have nothing to do with the competitive side, so I get to come into this unbiased when I say the roster is Quacker, Music, Robbie Bob, Sketch, and Trevor, and I'm putting this team 9th.
10th.
10th. Bonfire.
Gordo's affiliation bumps them up one slot above.
Yeah.
Maybe it does.
That's how we
maybe
know
it
he's
does.
really biased.
TDS, bail me out.
I didn't hear Nyarko, sorry.
Nyarko, are you 10th?
Oh, I put them at 10th. Sorry, I don't know.
Well,
Was that
TDS
background
already
noise
said
for
his
me?
10th, so I know TDS has got me.
Yeah, like I'm above that. Yeah, it's 9. I was just making sure because I wasn't 100% sure.
Well, this is the second. This is also tied for the most consensus ranking because I think the other one we had 3 3s and 2 2s or whatever for FLYC.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I'll lead it off as the Supernova truther here. This is not going to sound like high praise, but this team reminds me a lot of Team Liquid First. I feel like this team is just going to go top lane every game. This is going to be like the Music and Quacker show. I am a big believer in both Music and Quacker. I think Quacker really impressed me in his time since coming out of retirement. He came out and he played on CCG in the second OQ, looked very good there. And then he subbed in for AoE in the promotion tournament and looked very good there as well, taking down Maryville along with that roster. And, you know, he's been very vocal on Twitter that, like, you know, he played collegiate before that for Illinois. This is kind of going to be his first split where he's, like, really full-time all-in League of Legends. And I'm really excited to see what that produces because he's been a very impressive player to me, especially since he's come back from his retirement. He looks better than he did back on the wildcard days. And then Music, fresh out of the ERLs, he gets to be a North American talent by virtue of his location of birth. Good for him. And I think he looked really good with Rock Bottom in his last split there, and I'm excited to see what Music is going to be able to get done there. The rest of the team I'm a lot less excited on. I think Trevor talked me up a little bit in last split in his time on Fear. I think he looked very good there. I don't know if he's played with Sketch before. I feel like he has, but maybe he hasn't. Regardless, though, I think he's propped up quite a few 80 carries in his time. I think he'll be the same Trevor. Robbie Bob really struggled in his time on Evil Geniuses. Yeah. But I want to see, I think his bread and butter, his best position at this level has always been playing the supportive champions, the Gallios, the Lissandras, that kind of stuff. I'd like to see him play that and go and camp Quacker along with Music. And I think that'll get them some wins there, and that puts them above my 10th place team.
So Sketch
Re-roll swapped, yes.
Yeah, re-roll
This is
swap
like his
after
fourth
roll
roll swap this
swapping.
year, correct?
Oh, so I wasn't even counting on that, by the way. I already thought they were not going to press. Now that just surprised a bit more. But at the same time, like my reasoning goes with the same, like why I didn't put Maryville above them is the same reasoning why I'm putting them here. I think they are a more mechanical team. That means that there's going to be better opportunities for them to find wins without depending on teams being like just being bad at macro things like that. Like they are just going to be able to play with that. I think Quacker, like Gordo was pointing out, is going to be one of the main points of this team. And I think also, and there's one valuation that I almost always put for a team. It depends a ton on what the mid laner is capable of doing. And I think Robbie Bob is going to have a bit more impact than what Getback is going to be able to have as an impact in the whole NECL. So I think that's going to impact quite a bit, and that's why I put them at 9. Still don't have a lot of hope for this team, obviously, and I think they lost their best player as well. So I'm not going to think that they probably are going to be the best performing team at all, but I certainly will put them above Maryville, and I think they can try and steal a win here and there.
Yeah.
Maybe we see the one for one scenario that we saw with CLG Faith and TL First. The last split, they both just take wins against each other, and then they don't win against anyone else.
Yeah. Again, not really an interesting point from Bonfire here. It's just I don't want to. I just don't want to dogpile these 4 or 5 guys who are trying to live out their dream. But yeah, I just don't think they're. I don't think they have the synergy. I don't think they have the team play. I think they're going to be the worst team in the league, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. Just because I feel bad. I don't want to put anybody 10th. That feels terrible. These are guys just trying to live out their dreams, but I just don't think that they have it. So sorry.
Yeah. I do think it is also worth pointing out this was because of the merger with Veracity and everything, and this is not speaking as an insider, this is public information. This team was like the last one to come together in this offseason, and I think it shows. I think they kind of had the leftovers to put together here. And again, no BM to the players here. I just think this exact iteration, this exact combination of 5, not going to be very high on my list.
So the only thing I mean, you guys have made most of my points for me here. The only thing I'd want to say is I want to make sure I'm correct on this. This is the only team. Is this the only team that got promoted that did not retain a single player from the roster that got them here? Or
yeah, I mean, technically only Maryville and Supernova got promoted. The others got
Okay.
freebies, and AoE is a returning team. So. But yeah, it's pretty clear the roster consistency rule appears to have been suspended for this split, which people have takes on both sides of. I kind of think it's fair because otherwise a lot of these academy guys would have been gate kept out of the league just because they're better academy teams disbanded. I also think if you forced Supernova to play with the roster they qualified with, this team would be way harder 10th.
I do also want to preface because I know I've seen a lot of things on Twitter that like Supernova 05, their qualifier players, LOL, like they're kind of getting memed a little bit for it. Obviously, Gordo's point, that team compared to this one would be night and day, but also we got to factor in the whole thing, the fact that it wasn't made known that these teams were going to get stipends of 300K until pretty late. So I'm assuming like some of that roster they made promotion, once all of this stuff started crumbling, the team's like, yeah, guys, we're not really gonna be able to like fund you to play here in that breakup. So there's a lot of murkiness that comes behind it. I'm trying to make sure they don't get dogpiled for scrapping all 5 of those players because there was so much chaos in this offseason. But yeah, back to your guys' point, I think the thing that rings true is Gordo was talking about when talking about Maryville, he's like, you said something along the lines of, I don't think that Maryville has a support system to not completely collapse if they struggle or something like that. This is the team where I already have like I'm hovering. You know how like most fire alarm, like some of the like fire alarm buttons, they have like the you have to like pull a lever first before you can actually pull it down. It's like the prep thing, or how like on an airplane you have to move a lever. You have to, or like, break glass. So I've already broken the glass on Supernova. I'm just hovering over the button. I am very fearful for a lot of the reasons you guys made that this team could collapse very early on. And as much as we And we've already seen the whole, because I remember last time we were doing these preseason primers, we talked about how strong top lane was and how a decent amount of us leaned on ratings of how good the top laners were on certain teams and how they could lean on them. That was, and we saw what happened with leaning on top lane play. And that was when top lane was arguably the strongest lane. It's definitely a lot more balanced now. And if you're going to try and do that again, all I have to say is good luck, Supernova. Enjoy 10th place.
It really does feel like the difference between 9th and 10th place is how much faith people have in Quacker. Gordo and I were talking, I believe, yesterday about this a little bit, and he was saying, I'm putting Quacker above Lunacia. I'm putting Quacker near the top of the pack for top laners, and, I don't want to take...
Whoa. I am putting him above Lunacia. I'm not putting him near the top of the pack.
Okay. What would you say, middle of the pack?
I have him at 7th. I have all my player rankings right in front of me. I have him at 7th.
Okay, never mind. That is not top of the pack. Never mind. So somehow you've been left less faith in that because I haven't really had Quacker proven to me. I haven't watched enough footage and stuff like that. And, it could be a FLYC situation where I get completely dunked on that front. But if we're splitting hairs then where is Quacker the 7th best or the 9th or 10th best top laner in the league, then I think it's pretty justifiable to put Supernova at 10th. Given that they are going to be having to ride on that lane pretty hard. I really hope that I'm wrong, though. I would like to just see EG completely collapse and fall out the bottom of this, because it also means now Sketch is not going to be on the worst team 2 seasons running. If Sketch, yet again, gets relegated, I'm going to cry.
He might just not be as good as you think.
It isn't. I don't even think Sketch is good. I just like Sketch because I liked CLG Faith, and he's like one of the few remaining people from CLG Faith that has a presence here in the NACL.
Well, wouldn't that be the reason why he's role swapping so much? Because
He's just doing everything he can to stay.
To be fair, he intended to play support the whole spring split. That was like a victim of circumstance there when they ended up needing to make that swap, but. Yeah, I mean, it's rough. It's rough out there.
Yeah, CLG no longer exists, so we don't need to talk about that.
Thank God.
True.
Right.
And with that, I suppose we can move on past Supernova here. Our next team is Team Fish Taco. This roster is Lunacia, Rosethorn, Onat, Spawn, and NXI role swapping down there into support. This is my 10th place team. I have this team at 10th.
Ooh.
I have them at 9th. Sorry, Slayer.
No, you're fine. I have them at 8th.
I guess I'm the believer of TFT because I have them all the way up at 6th.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Interesting, Nyarko, because you're not the only one. I had them at 5.
Whoa!
Let's go, baby! Also,
Alright,
what the hell?
here.
Let's go, baby!
I'm just gonna sit back on this one, folks. You guys have fun.
Even higher than them. So
TDS
here's the
can
thing
start
with
us
me
off.
with this team. I think, first of all, I think they are above the clear ones like Maribel, Supernova, and I was thinking which teams they could have the potential to go against, and I think this roster is pretty wild cardy in a lot of sense. I think they have a lot of potential with some of their players. I won't go against like some of the perceptions of some of the players, like Lunacia is one that I'm still trying to wrap my hand around, because sometimes it looks like he's going to be really good, but then sometimes he's going to be really shit. There's a meme about that. So it's kind of like that logic that Gattuso brought forward, and I think I shared it with Lunacia, but I think he has potential to try and move forward. But my main points are going to be, for what I support so much as team, the jungle, the mid, and the AD carry. I think those 3 players are good, and they can perform to a really good enough level, and they are going to bring forward or bring up TFT. I think Spawn didn't get the not the respect, but the credit that he deserved on his time in Dignitas. I think that even when he was brought down, he was still able to perform to a certain degree with the team, and I think that he is going to be one of the better AD carries overall, so he should not have that much of a problem in terms of the league. And I think Rosethorn had a really good upswing in the previous split, bringing forth a lot of what made GG good to a certain degree. And I think him with Young did a really good amount of job to try and make GG be a competitive team. And then my biggest hope for the overall split is with Onat, because I think that he's one of the mid laners that not only I have a high hope for, last split I had it with APA, I think this time is with Onat, where I see him going going to be a mid laner that is going to contest with the top mid laners. Like, I think he was the best player in Supernova, and I feel like he's going to be able to perform here with TFT. And I'm betting a lot on Onan. Like, I think he's going to be a really, really great mid laner overall. Now, NXI is a wild card, but it's support. It's support. Yeah.
Yeah, so
All right,
I guess
PDS, I'm gonna just
Oh, go ahead, Nyarko.
I'm gonna
It's the other
boost you
high
before
boy.
Gordo could get in here, and then Yukos, right? So I'm not only an Onat believer, but I'm also a Lunacia believer, and I am a huge Rosethorn fan. Yuji and Rosethorn are the two players that I kind of liked before the last split of the NACL, and then I became huge fans of through their play. Rosethorn, I think, was the glue that held Golden Guardians together, kept them from being the predicted claps that I had in our last power rankings, I believe. And I think that we collectively agreed that this team was kind of like running it down. But Rosethorn kept them above water, and honestly, they kind of impressed, especially during the playoffs. NXI role swapping over to support is going to allow for me to bring back my point that support at the end of the day, unfortunately, just doesn't matter that much as long as someone else is taking on shot calling burdens, which I think is probably going to be the case for TFT as a whole. And I think that therefore they have a stable bot lane. You have a top lane that I feel like a lot of people are down on, but honestly has already proven themselves with a solid track record of at least being middle of the pack, middle band. And then you have Onat mid, who I think can really flip everything on its head. And with that in mind, I still don't have them insanely high, but I do think that they are going to be able to outstrip the likes of EG and Supernova. AoE's a little bit up in the air alongside Maraville, but I do think that the ceiling for TFT is going to be higher given how much of a known quantity Maraville is.
Yep.
Here comes
So-
the bad man.
Yeah,
say, do you
I
wanna
don't know.
go,
I don't
Gordo?
think I'm gonna be. I'm actually not gonna come and dump on you guys that hard. I think I
I
agree with
will.
actually a lot of what TDS said, that all these players are, I think, kind of wild cards. I think the only one I come in confident in is Rosethorn. I do agree with Nyarko there. I think Rosethorn is perma underrated in this community. I don't actually even know why. I think he's looked very good at the academy level the whole time he's been here. I think CLG Rosethorn was great until he got randomly benched. I think Golden Guardians Rosethorn was very good until the team disbanded, and I expect TFT Rosethorn will be solid as well. Everybody else I have huge question marks about, though. I think Lunacia is probably the second highest for me. He's probably the only player out of the 20 that played on the bottom 3 NACL teams last split where I actually come out with a higher opinion of him than I started with. I think everybody else is dropping lower and lower. Lunacia, I think, impressed me. I would like to see him continue to get better, although I still think, he's got quite a ways to go before he's going to be like a top talent, or even like a mid-tier talent. And then the rest of them are where I really start to have questions, right? Onat in mid. He had a great breakout split in amateur last split after a couple of splits of being like middle tier in amateur. And I think like having a breakout split in amateur and like then turning that straight around into a breakout split in NACL would be unexpected for me. I think he's going to take some time to adjust at this level, and I'm going to start him near the bottom and hope to be proved wrong. Granted, I did do this with APA last split as well, and then I was wrong and TDS was right. So we'll see if they run that back. And then Spawn NXI bot lane, I'm actually very concerned about. If there's anything I learned last split watching Spawn play in LCS and then watching him come down to NACL, it's that he's very confidence-driven, I would say. Like, he seems to really need, to feel empowered in that bottom lane. I don't know if it's his support. I don't know if it's the team around him. Not like I know the guy personally. But he definitely has had some high highs and some low lows. And I think pairing him up with a freshly role-swapped support, given what we saw from him with a team that wasn't gelling and a team that was gelling last split, just feels like a recipe for disaster to me. I'm very concerned about Spawn NXI bot lane. And I do think bot and mid are really, really important to be successful on in this meta. So, yeah, I just end up putting them down at 10th. I think there's too many question marks, and if I may make a call here, we can clip this for the future. I think TFT is like my candidate for team that picks up a player or two after OQ1 and makes some roster changes here. I think there's no way all 5 of these guys end up being like really, really good. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, you have 9 choices, right? Because Maryville technically can't
That's true.
They can. They just have to get them to enroll at Maryville University.
Yeah, exactly. So you just have 9 choices out of all the teams.
Well, also, like,
Technically-
CLAW rules don't apply. I don't think it'll ever happen, because I feel like this is not the kind of org that Maryville runs. I think Clerky would want to keep the rules in like, singular, so I don't think Clerky would do this. But I think technically, like, they're not bound by CLAW rules. So Maryville could have their collegiate team, and then Maryville, the NACL spot, could get players who don't attend Maryville University. I don't think Riot would do anything about that. I don't think that's against any rules.
Also,
hilarious.
it's summer, not spring, so technically it'd be a lot easier to get
People are on
players to
summer break.
enroll to Maryville.
True,
because
true.
they could,
Right.
because
Just do
they're-
summer classes, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I have this analogy that I've been building this whole time. I've been listening to everyone talk, and it's like, I don't know if you've ever gone on Instagram, and then there's this video of some guy who's like, I just made pizza, tater tot, chicken wing, French fries, and it's like all these amazing foods that everyone likes, but it's all together, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna need fucking Pepto-Bismol after that. That's basically
not
what
gonna
this
taste
team
good.
is for me. That's what this team is. It's just so many good things that will not work well together, and that's why I have them in 9th, because I think it's going to be 5 individual players, and it's going to be like your comp games. It's going to be like, hey, can I get a gank? And it's like, no, I need the jungler here, and it's like, why is my support roaming? And I just don't think these 5 players are going to play well together. So that's my argument.
Bold of you to assume that the role swap jungler is going to leave lane.
Bold assumption there. I guess as the happy median here, I believe I did my numbers right.
Yeah.
I do want to, the one takeaway I want to make sure everybody have, and I'm very happy that we've taken away from this, is we have somebody on this panel putting TFT 5 and someone of them putting them dead last, but we all agree that Rosethorn deserves his, pun intended, roses, because he is much better than a lot of people have held to him. I'm glad that we've all come to that decision, and Gordo made that point, because I do think the reason why they're 8th for me is I think Rosethorn is, a top half jungler potentially in this Challengers League split. So that's why they kind of bumped up to 8th, and I am definitely the guy that likes to make the point that jungle has the highest variancy on a team at all, has the most aka impact in a way. That can be taken as bad or good impact, and I think in this sense it will be good, so they can move up to 8th. The other point the reason though they're also 8th though is because of what also Gordo brought up. I'm very, very scared of this bottom lane, because I think Spawn, when he looked good last, the spurts of greatness he showed last time, it was in a bot lane meta where it was really strong, and now we've seen it balance out a bit more, and the role swap is going to be really intriguing. Bold of you to assume that the role swap jungler to support would roam. Yeah, I think that's going to happen, and that might be more detrimental to Spawn, because I think he succeeds a lot more when he has, not to make the Valorant pun, a pocket Sage, if you will, kind of sticking with him in lane. If he roams a little too much left on his own, might even be more detrimental. So bot lane's where my question mark is, but Rosethorn is very good, and I hope to at some point to see him get pulled up to one of these mainstay NACL orgs and actually have good players built around, like great players built around him.
Yeah, and
I
when
have a
Spawn
critical
is...
interjection.
Oh, go ahead.
Slayer, you have to go to Valorant to make a reference to Pocket Sage when we have Yumi, Lulu,
Yeah,
Milio.
listen, it was the first thing to my brain. All right, I just went
Yes.
for it. You're right though. Nyarko, you're right. You should be scolding me, but that's the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah, and the other thing about Spawn, right, is like when he's looked his best, it's been with supports like JJ and Diamond, like guys who've been around for forever, who are super experienced. NXI is the opposite of that. So that's kind of where I'm coming at there. But that's enough about old.
Just a quick thing before we move on. I'm so sad that NXI has to role swap, by the way. Like, I feel he was one of the junglers that looks so promising, but obviously anyone that plays with CLG Faith could have looked as bad as what happened over there. So the fact that he's now forced to role swap kind of leaves me with a bad taste in mouth. I think that he had such an potential to prove himself in the jungle, but I guess it's what happens when there's when one bad split, one horrendous split actually comes through, and then it's difficult to recover from there.
Yeah, a lot of jungle turnover this last offseason. I mean, it surprises me to not see Yukino here as well.
Right.
It surprises me not to see XU here as well. Like we're missing a
XU.
lot of
That's the
very
biggest thing for
talented
me.
junglers this split.
Well, Chad is going to compete in amateur, right?
Yeah, but that's not a name that I said.
No. But I mean, like, but the point I wanted to bring was, Chad is in amateur. That means that maybe one of them is in amateur.
I hope so too. I really hope that. I mean, XU made one of the most explicit tweets where he was just like, "Damn, I might have to get a real job now." I hope he doesn't have to, or I hope he gets a real job, or he can still play amateur. I think XU is developing so nicely, and I'm gonna be really sad if we lose him. Yukino is
Or
like
get
still
into
in high
collegiate.
school, I'm pretty sure. So Yukino has some time to like go play collegiate and figure it out from there if he must.
Well, actually, could actually just join Maryville.
He could. Odorange is getting up there in years. I don't know. I think I remember we talked about this at around qualifiers time. The only player in Maryville who's close to graduating is Niles, right? Nyarko, you're my Maryville expert here.
Yeah.
Very good. And by close, I mean like this upcoming semester or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we can move on here. Up next, we have got Team Liquid Challengers, and this is my first place team.
Yeah, baby. Team Liquid on top. First place team.
That is as shocking as the sun rising. Right there. I have them too. I like this roster a lot.
I have them at 3, but I think I've noted it before. I think that any of these placements are justifiable. And that's the way that I'm trying to defend myself, because I see Bonfire's facial reaction to me putting them all the way down in the bronze medal position.
Oh my.
And I closed it out with the first as well. And it's pretty. I think you guys knew it was pretty obvious that I was going to go first with this team.
It's not
Not
wild
only
card
did
first
I-
for you, TDS.
Yeah, of course. The team I repped since spring, it's going to be my number one. I put them first as well in spring, if I'm not wrong. So I'm
Well,
rooting for them once again. And I
Can't get
believe
worse
in
than
them.
9th, right?
Yeah, true.
Well, that
For
was
me-
in the
for me,
regular
both.
season. They finished third if you count the playoffs.
Yeah.
True.
That's actually my argument, is they only got better as time progressed. They started pretty horribly, and then I don't know. I can't really talk in the regular season. I don't remember how the regular season played out, but they finished 9th, and then they had a really great playoffs, and they look like they're gelling well together. Full squad. Yeah, it's a good team. I don't know what else to say. I'm Bradley's incredible. I'm actually surprised he didn't get picked up to be on any rosters in the LCS. Mir, Appa, and Arrow all did really good, including, I could be wrong. Did Appa not win the...
Mir won the
Mir
most
won it.
valuable
Mir won it.
prospect.
Mir won most valuable prospect. Like, this team is just like teeming with talent, and they've got a great system. I think they have the best coach in the league by far. Like, this team is pretty unbelievable in my eyes.
So I hate to ask this question and sound like
Oh boy.
like an what's the word? I guess noob is the gamer term. It's APA, right? It's not
APA.
APA.
It's APA,
yeah.
but it's fun to say APA.
It is.
TDS
Yeah,
does
it
the
is
same
fun to
thing.
say.
Yeah.
Is it MIR or is
Yeah,
it
it's
Mir?
easier for me.
No, it's Mir. I'll just quickly get my point out of the way quickly, because I want to leave the stage for more of the TL supporters, because we have two big ones here. I guess one already talked, but my logic here is kind of similar to Nyarko. Is I think that they could finish first as well. That's kind of like the consensus with the top 4, I feel like, in a way. But my logic here is that you could argue that they have the top player in 4 positions. So you're going to go off that logic. Yeah. So for me, it would be like you could argue Bradley's 1. Most people consider Bradley 1. Mir is coming off just being crowned number 1 and arguably as a prospect and could be in the jungle. I'm also now converting to the Church of APA, the TDS preached very long time ago, along with Nyarko. So he is my 1. And then Arrow, I know Arrow got a shot in the LCS. I feel like the guy deserves another one. I mean, come on. He just feels like too much of a stud down here at this point for me. So that's my logic for them being 2. The only thing keeping me from putting them 1 is the rescue NA propaganda I already pushed.
The godly proposition of
Yeah. I do think, yeah, I agree with the points that have been made here. I think it's really easy for us as people who are super ingrained in the amateur scene and, you know, watched these players before NACL and, you know, watched NACL qualifiers and Proving Grounds qualifiers before it. It's easy to get mixed up, especially with all the new formerly amateur talent coming into the NACL. But APA and Kim Down were rookies last split, right? They're coming into their second split. APA and Kim Down both, I think both grew a lot over the course of the split itself. Like from start to finish, they got really recognizably better, especially APA, but I think Kim Down too. So I'm excited to see them take the next step up. Yeah, I think Mir and Arrow feel like cheating. The former LCK players that they are both still very, very good, and I think are, you know, explicitly there to back up the main team. I'm still surprised Mir didn't get the start over Pioshik for LCS. And yeah, he might. That still might be on the table. And then the fact that my biggest question mark is Bradley is why, you know, this team has to be first, right? Because Bradley's been so good in the past and in 2022. He's a little bit more hit and miss in spring for me. You know, especially I think that's that Golden Guardian series where he got a bit clapped by Concept. That does not inspire a lot of confidence in me. But if Bradley like returns to that 2022 form, if he finds an excuse to play Gangplank every game, you know, I have so much faith in him. I'm really excited for this team this split. And if Bradley returns to form, I think they win it easy. I think they're the best team by a lot at that point. I think they're close if Bradley retains the form from spring.
Yeah, I already said that teams that have the cohesion are going to be looking quite good for me. That's why I had FLYC so high up. And then obviously this was going to be the team that I would rep even harder than any other team. Obviously, it's a team that has a lot of good pieces. I agree there's players that you could contest. It's at the minimum top 3, at the highest top 1 in some of the positions. So it's really good to see coming in from them. And I think importantly as well, one crucial thing for me to also keep them up as the number 1, it's the fact that the meta hasn't changed as much to try and push away from what they played. They were a really strong team around playing through objectives with bot lane control and then top lane going with them. The fact that the meta is essentially almost the same because dragons are still important, objectives are still important, and you're playing with your main carries almost always, means that they are essentially going to not only keep their similar playstyle, but with a higher amount of experience. And then the main thing that I always bring forward, mid lane is crucial. You have the best mid lane in the league. I think you should be set to be able to win. There's no more Diplex, no more insanity to try and gatekeep my boy APA. He's going to perform and he's going to be number 1 this split.
I just quickly, Nyarko, did you have a chance to speak it or no?
Not yet. I don't really have much to say though, actually. The one thing I will note is that I don't actually disagree with many of the points being made here. The reason why I have them at third is that I have kind of a yes, but response, and then I talk about other teams. So given the fact that I've already talked about FlyQuest and Disguised and just the momentum that they have, be it from the fans, be it from the fact that Disguised has gotten a roster that frankly represented the team that took down TL to a degree in the last split, and then Fly is a team that I have my whole backing behind just by virtue of loving their roster and believing that they have an incredible ceiling that we have yet to see so far. That's why I have TL at third, but it really is such a smackdown for the top of this. So I'm very happy to see people putting them at 1 or 2.
Okay. I wanted to say before we move off of Team Liquid Challengers, we probably should. I don't even know if we have to mention it, but Bradley. We talked a little bit about Bradley. His mother just got diagnosed with cancer. He posted about it on Twitter. So if anybody wants to donate to him, it's on his Twitter page. I just feel like it would be remiss. We talk about the whole, league to not mention somebody going through something and, provide an outlet to donate. So the GoFundMe's on his Twitter page if you want to donate. And obviously we're all wishing him, the best of luck. Cancer's a real bastard. So best of luck, Bradley.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
I want to quickly double on that just for in case people struggle to find his page. It's at Bradley with 3 Y's lol. So at Bradley lol if you are struggling to find it, because that's a very, very amazing point to make there, Bonfire.
Absolutely. And with that, let's move on to wildcard here. Our last team, the W Boys. I have this team at 5th.
Ooh. I have them at. Oh, did you say who's on the team yet?
Oh no, good call, good call. I didn't say it for Team Liquid either, but everyone knows who's on Team Liquid. It's and I'm gonna flash it up on screen. The viewers at home, they don't have to worry about it. But wildcard is Zamudo, Keel, Soligo, Lens, and Isles.
I have them at 7th.
I also have them at 7th.
Ooh, Slayer.
Ooh, Bonfire.
You see, I was a little bit worried about the Bonfire because I also have Wildcard at 5th alongside Gordo.
Ooh, TDS.
Hey, that's
Tiebreaker.
true. Yeah, I think.
Tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'm the one that is a bit against you guys. I have them below at 8.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
All right, and quick note before I forget to say it, it has been reported by the Pokemon, who, by the way, is the source for all of these rosters because half these
True,
teams
of
haven't
course.
announced yet. That Duo King will be starting for the beginning as Isles is having some visa troubles.
It wouldn't be a preseason primer without a visa trouble update.
I'm
I
kind of curious with this thing though. Is Duo King still part of the roster, or is
yeah,
he just...
he's still part of the roster. He's just
Yeah, I
Oh,
guess he's a
okay, okay.
sub now. I guess he's behind Isles, or he just agreed to come back for like a week because he doesn't have another NACL team. Who knows?
Yep.
I'll just lead off. I don't have high hopes for this team as a whole. I think that out of all the teams in the lower part, like for some of them, it was kind of like, well, they could be really bad, but they could, find their way into the mid-table. I feel pretty confident that this is a 7th-place team. The only thing stopping them, in my eyes, from really falling below that is I'm a Soligo believer. I think Soligo is a great player, and I think that he's going to be a bright spot on this team. And when Isles does officially come back, I think it's hard not to be an Isles believer as well. And so both of those players, I think, are really strong parts of this team, and have experience on the big upper stage. And I think they can keep this team from the drop, but I think that they're low.
Two. Just Nyarko, you want to go first? You haven't gone first in a long time. You want to talk up this team before I get into it?
Sure, I'll take over that role. I think that while Wildcard is a team that I have already said on this podcast kind of got exposed as the season went on by the virtue of people figuring them out, the roster changes that we see are either side grades in a way that helps stabilize the roster or in a way kind of an upgrade, particularly in the support role. I think that Isles, like you said, Bonfire is someone to believe in, someone to be a fan of. For me, the reason why Wildcard makes it all the way to the 5th spot is not necessarily because I think they're insane in any one of these roles. It's rather that they shore up weaknesses and concerns that I have from the teams under them. Maryville, I think, is, like I said before, kind of a gatekeeper of the lower bracket in a way, in that we know the most about how they play, and therefore I would say that their overarching strength is the thing to start comparing some of these other teams against. AoE, I think, is slightly below Maryville. TFT is slightly above Maryville. And Wildcard, in my opinion, is above TFT because they are more stable than Team Fish Taco's roster is. Therefore, I really have no choice but to slot them in right behind Fear. And you could say that this is an indictment about like the weaker bottom half of the NACL as a whole, but honestly, I think that this is still a pretty competitive grouping of people. And similar to how I have 1, 2, 3 as pretty granular and pretty able to jump upon one another, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these higher contenders of the very bottom of the bracket do something against Wildcard. It's just a question of how will people be able to figure them out this time, and how is Wildcard going to read the meta, particularly because they don't have that, well, frankly, Wildcard in the form of Moose Hater top, which I feel really pulled discussion away from some of these other very stable lanes. I really like Soligo. I'm happy to see them here. Keel as well, as kind of a mid-jungle duo, did a lot. And I think that now they are going to be the ones thrust in the spotlight now that we don't have Moose Hater topside, grabbing that Garen, grabbing that Alawi and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think and it's weird because I'm going to sound like I'm coming down on the team, even though I have them at 5th. it's very interesting because I see this team. It's funny that they keep mirroring Fear as their NACL journeys continue. They're kind of they have that duality about them, because they were the two teams that surprised us out of amateur last split, and were actually able to be competitive and move up the standings, and they both end up replacing the same roles, which is top and support coming into this split. But whereas I think Fear really cements what they had been going for, where they, really expected consistency out of their top and support roles, I think Wildcard really relied on the flexibility and explosiveness from those positions. And that's why I worry when I see them getting replaced, right? I think Moose Hater and Duo King's tendencies to play very off-meta, very off-the-wall picks was a big part of this team's identity. And that's what concerns me, right? Moose Hater was the Garen guy, the Zac guy, Duo King was the Blitzcrank Zyra guy, and there's no way that's who Isles and Zamudo are going to be. Now, I am very hyped for the players, right? I do think, pound for pound, these can individually be upgrades. I think Isles has looked very good. I used to classify him right alongside Ayla when the two were playing together. They're both Osh players. They both came over about the same time. They were both on high-level Osh teams before Academy, and they were both very good in Academy. And then Ayla, got to sub in for Core JJ and go on this crazy route, whereas Isles got one series in playoffs on a collapsing Cloud9 and then was blacklisted. So, they took very different routes from there. But I'm hyped for Isles and Zamudo. I mean, I'm a big Zamudo believer. For those who've only gotten into NACL this year, this guy just turned 19. He was a big pop-out player in 2022 when he broke out with the non-NACL version of AoE. And then he just spent that last split playing in Korea, living with LS. So he is coming in fresh off a few months of Korean solo queue. I'm very high on this guy. I think he's going to be great.
He has the LS seal of approval essentially.
He does.
So
He does. I mean, last top laner in NA to get that seal of approval was Fudge. I'm just saying.
Exactly. So I it's funny because I have the same reasoning for why I put wildcard in this spot. It's the one that you're using, Gordo. On paper, they changed players and made the roster a bit more balanced. This stabilizes the roster a bit more because now they don't depend on the wacky stuff to have the roster play around that. The thing is, I think that was Wildcard's way of playing, the wacky stuff. And now without the wacky stuff, how do they actually go forward? And it's why I had the fight between 6, 7, and 8 because I think that these three teams could be really similar in a lot of instances, but also that there's things that differentiate them in how I would like to put them above each other. I think that depending on how much the wacky was important for Wildcard, it's what's scaring me. I think Isles and Zamudo should be better players, but if the team doesn't play around that factor better, then I'm not sure how it's going to perform. And I also still have my doubts on Zamudo, not because I don't think that he can be a really good player, but because he was once played out of play. So now he's coming back to competitive. He didn't have that much experience anyway. So now you took away that from him, from the fact that he didn't play last split, and he's going to come back up. Maybe he has some grievances, maybe not, but that's also another factor that I'm looking at. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go above 8. It's just that I'm not sure how much it really was depending on that wacky stuff sometimes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Is only me left up to?
Yeah, man. Go ahead and say your piece if you got it, Slayer.
I mean, I don't have much here, unfortunately, to close it out, because a lot of these points have already been made. I will say the logic for me putting them up to 7th above a team like Team Fish Taco is kind of going back to what we talked about with Soligo. I am definitely in the Soligo camp. I actually, in fact, had Wildcard above EG Challengers before I heard the good old-fashioned I have EG Challengers 6. I know that's been a while ago since we wrote that down. I almost had them one above because until I heard the detrimental visa issue, the two words that you never want to hear around NACL. So I was really hot on Isles as well. I think he was the big boy compared to Soligo. I look at on the team that I wanted to pop off, but now your visa issues. I'm like, all right, got to bump him down one spot. So I thought Soligo and Isles could have carried them very far. I think Soligo is going to be a very big piece towards this team, and I do think when you stack up how do I feel against your best player being a jungler versus best player being a mid? You can see through my rankings, I really high on Rose Storm with Team Fish Taco, one spot behind Wildcard because Wildcard's best player is Saligo. So that's kind of where my logic's at. I do want to see if the LS stamp of approval has a 2-for-2 kind of success rate around North America to see how Zamudo performs, because if he goes from backing Fudge, coming into NA to coach, getting booted out and whatever weirdness that was, and then going, all right, here, hey NA, here, take my next product from Korea. I mean, what as a org could you say to not bring this guy back? Because at this point, he's just kind of cultivating elite talent.
I just hope it
far
does,
away.
because I hope he just keeps pumping them out, because Tenacity and Griffin are going over there this split.
True.
So, you know, if Griffin comes back and now he's our new turbocharged next upcoming jungler, right? Like, I don't want LS to have a coaching job then. Just keep your boot camp going, LS. We're just gonna keep sending every NA teenager that comes up your way.
Yeah. Fortunately, I think LS did say he's never going to coach again, right? So
I think he said that before he took the Cloud9 job too, to be fair.
Yeah,
Oh my god, that was a
Oh,
disaster.
Either way, I hope for the best. I hope that works out. And I really do believe in Zamudo. So that's all of our power rankings. So I just went and sorted the Google sheet. So this means our collective power rankings in this order are Team Liquid Challengers at first, Disguised at second, Fly Challengers at third, Cincinnati Fear at fourth, Evil Geniuses at fifth, Wildcard at sixth, a tie for 7th, 8th between AoE and Maryville. 9th is Team Fish Taco, and 10th is Supernova at 9.6 average positioning. That is a rough one.
Yeah. Interesting.
That all makes sense. I will say some of my hot takes get washed away in that, but I will
So does
hold on to them.
Nyarko's.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we all
GG
just. I mean, that's what averages are for, I suppose.
We'll see. If the average consensus ends up being what was most correct. I guess we never really did that last split. We
Yeah,
never
that'll be
compared
interesting.
the average rankings to where we ended up. Maybe we should have done that.
I think
Oh, well,
it looks
note
We
for
kind of
future
did.
episodes. Note for this season.
I think we did, but it was like really abysmal. When in hindsight, it was really bad.
It was
So-
too
Yeah.
embarrassing. We couldn't show it
Thinking-
on stream.
Thinking back to our takes from that last primer, they had to have been ugly.
Yeah, I just want to bring forward quickly that we had CLG first above Wildcard, Fly first.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Fear.
yeah.
Wait, we
Well,
had
okay,
CLG
no.
first?
Wait, CLG
no,
eight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mistaken.
Oh,
the name.
okay.
They
I
have
was
a
like,
lot
I
of-
was like, we had
yeah.
CLG
CLG
first. There's no
eight.
way.
In our
Yeah, no,
defense,
CLG 13.
in our defense, we had no idea of how good the committed teams were going to be.
Well, yeah.
Like we were just like a lot of our. If I listened back to it recently, a lot of our points were like, well, they're in the CLG, thing. Maybe they'll get some more support. They were just like kicked to the curb.
Well, if
Yeah.
you see what happened with CLG, makes sense how it turned out. So
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I
hey,
suppose.
2 shots at CLG already in one episode. I'm proud of that one.
All right, I'm proud of us, boys, because we've kept this
Yeah.
under 2 hours. We've trimmed off quite a fair bit. We kept it at just about 10 minutes a team. Ends up going to, just a little over 100 minutes there. So, well done, everybody. Thank you all for hopping on for another preseason episode. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening. Hope you've enjoyed our new video format. If you're listening on Spotify, come check out our YouTube. We've got our beautiful faces on here now, some of those beautiful new assets. And we're going to keep using that throughout the season. Got some other visual aids coming up there. Got some other fun stuff in store. So make sure to check out the NACL when it kicks off on Saturday. And check out this show as we're going to start dropping weekly episodes again as we get into the season. Even though things are taking a little bit of a downturn, going to be a real fun season to keep supporting that NA talent and keep tracking this league. So thank you all again for tuning in. And TDS, it looks like you have something you want to say to everybody.
Yeah, and in case LCS gets canceled, we may be your only source of actual content
That's true.
after a certain while, so you should come and check it out.
I mean, we're well on the way to being the only NA TSM, so that's something.
We're
We're the only TSM in the NACL at the very least, so we got that going for us. But that is going to do it for the episode, as I've already said, so take it easy, everybody, and we will see you next time.